Yeah, I thought the picture was big enough for it to sit on the
It might.
tabletop itself.
We found a lot of jewels at resendes.
Did you?
Yeah, we found. They were in the box. We were just going and we were like, oh, we found one. So we put it into the truck. And we even found a yellow one, a blue one. Well, we found two of the blue ones. We found a green one that, you know, that destination thing that like this.
Well, it used to be their pool toys.
Oh, it's a deck.
So in the summer, they were throwing in the pool. So they could find them.
Yeah, how Palantrus found them. But there's a red one in there.
That outfit that Oscar was wearing.
With what?
I said to him, like, wow, it's going to be tough to keep tucked in. And he's like, it's a onesie, isn't it wonderful?
Those are, I mean, I would wear them.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Joseph should wear them.
As long as you can.
Yeah, if there's a zipper right here, this shirt like that.
It's a nice shirt, and it,
No, but okay.
the side of it starts here, so I've got 1 millimeter of tie before it's.
Well, yeah, my last button is right here. So I might butterfly it. Well, yeah, the same thing as that guy's briefs that have that.
Brother picture?
Does everything working down from the director and whatnot?
As far as we can tell, yeah.
You want to make room?
Yeah.
Make room for dad. 2 and 2?
Yeah, for Jesus.
Okay. Just make that like that. 2, 3.
This isn't about dad. I don't want that dad. Okay, I'm gonna steal this one. Hey, bud, don't drive it. Such a just
Hey, Camilla, like.
Camilla goes like, she's so funny.
Does she do the lip curl like you used to?
Sort of. She does like yeah, she just like when you tell her to pose or smile, she really is.
A lot of kids do that. You have to tell them like they're laughing at a joke. Right? That's how we used to get the best laughs, smiles out of him. Laugh. Yeah. See, otherwise, we would do the same thing.
It's so yeah.
Mouth changes. Well, how changes?
It's so her smiles are so genuine. Yeah, I don't think she's smiling so big that her eyes are closed.
Yes.
Adrian's funny because Adrian, every single picture we try to smile, her face, like the same thing with her tantrums.
Her anger.
That's every single picture. Shut up, Mom! My mom, shut up! Well, we used to joke about every picture you send us of that Adrian, it's not happy. Now it's like, yeah, it's not more. It's like, you guys just gave up at it.
I love the your Thanksgiving picture, your family photo. How you didn't bother cropping out everything up.
We couldn't get it. I played a little bit, but no matter what you do, I like
You put dad on top of
the picture of Lucille with all the kids and Adrian's getting so to me like because Adrian was like being around and all the cousins they're all smiling and laughing. And then to get Adrian to smile, she's sitting in the crowd and get a smile and we all start cheering. But it says smile, she would like turn around and look and then that's the picture. It's like this and everyone's like
It's like, excuse me.
kids are all so
Yeah, you just said.
when I was over today, they all started jumping on me on the couch. I was like, you guys are all so dark.
Yeah.
When she naked, she looks like she's still wearing it.
Yeah.
She got really
April's really dark.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
Yeah, she's really dark.
Yeah, Mark's just a bit. Just saying, it's up to you.
Everyone's knock over that projector. I'm gonna not only dang you on the
And then I'm gonna tickle Daddy so he drops you. You better be careful.
I will drop you before he gets to the technique. So it was crying because he realized you actually jumped on the couch and started doing that. And you back off a little bit. And he just,
Now he won't stop.
now it's just like, I have so much power. I've never, oh.
Yeah, I've never heard that sound from Daddy before.
This is mine.
I actually put them both back there. So that one was Ryan.
Okay, so there's gonna be silence in the room and all you're gonna hear is. Even at a wedding, I remember in the back of the room in Ravens, we're standing there like, hell, man. The loudest Raven just was like, Vader, shut up!
They're just total nervous. Is it on? Okay.
That's not COVID safe. Stop touching the microphone with your mouth.
You know, don't touch anything with your mouth.
We got Lysol, right?
You have 10 years away from the mic.
At church, when we first raised Jesus. At church, it's like, but we were getting elected. For real, they were like, there's a guy that has a beard, like,
It's all static.
and he just was like, it was so funny because we were like we're recording,
You see like little
and
sparks.
it's just like backing up. I'm like, I have to stop. I'm sorry, I'm getting like, am I the only one? He's like, because they just were spraying with Lysol. He's so funny. That's what they should do is have a microphone set up and then one of those aerosol, like voice activated things that as you're talking to them, disinfecting as you talk.
With every time you open your mouth, you basically deep throat them. Sanitizer. I'm saying like, hey, I felt like saying, okay, Trump, man of your word, drink some Jack Ice. Then he says,
phone be for it. Oh, I see. This is better not to do this. It's like a package of.
Well, I mean, if you were to go and visit him in the hospital, they might turn you.
Yeah.
And you have to be.
He has no choice.
I only saw it once.
At least you do when you have that vision.
How's it going? Great.
Next one, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm crossing travels here.
Yeah, okay. No, they're not. You're right.
No, I have nothing to do with the turtles, just this is the only lounge.
Yeah, okay. That happened.
Eventually, obviously, not how long. That's what all that. He said that or
Well, I just want to leave for my
you know, if you wait for the salt to go down and then all go to the. Well, it's tough with the kids.
Yeah.
It's 10 grand, you have to leave the babysitter.
Yeah.
Or grandmas. That's
That's
easy. This was here though.
That's
The tub might have been from.
This is, no, that picture's
This
from
is here because
Ontario.
this is a park. The bucket.
Because they use,
The banding.
they actually,
It's the same idea. That's why you have to. That goes. Yeah. But it is okay. It's just a different word to do. He told us yeah. It's what he's having
doing this. Right. It's been broken for a while. I just was this because
It's so sunny in Langley. Get over the bridge and it's
that's common.
just blow on the ground.
It's like if you want to go to Sun and you're in Maple Ridge, just go across the bridge.
Sunny. Yeah.
Sunny Ridge.
So the kids don't come.
They are coming. The littler ones, or all my kids, some of Mark's and Max, she was in the kids, are going later.
Yeah, because they gonna, the oldest one, they gonna.
I'm sitting up here.
I
Yes, I know
It's okay. Christmas is good, thanks for being here. Okay.
What's up, buddy? Say hi, Doc.
Could we ask people to please find a table and sit down? I just figure I'm sitting there somewhere. Sure. If you're here for the bachelor party, that's at 4. So sorry, but wanted to welcome you to, on behalf of the family, to my father's celebration of life. To let everyone know, there are washrooms out the door. Turn right, and there's signs on the walls in case you need it. Well, I didn't check, but please advise or obey COVID rules if you are getting up, to make sure that you're not touching things on your way out and in. I'd like to bring Lisa up right now. No? Yeah? For a few words. That's all.
So we're all going to share a little bit about Dad and moral support here. Just before I get into what I had written down, I just want to share a little bit about the urn. So if you noticed, under Dad's picture, there is what looks like a paper mache turtle. That is actually a biodegradable urn. Dad's wish was to be cremated, and he wants his ashes sprinkled in the Azores, if we can afford to get there one day. That's the plan. If not, somewhere on the island between Tofino and Port Alberni on the left. That was his description. So, Dad might have to wait a little while, but so with the turtle, the entire urn will biodegrade. So when we're ready, we'll put the turtle in the ocean, and it will float, and then it will sink, and it will biodegrade. I think within 4 hours, he'll be one with the water. Dad always liked the ocean, so we thought that was kind of appropriate. Okay. So, as I sat trying to write Dad's eulogy, I kept getting stuck because it didn't feel right. It felt like writing a paper or a dissertation on Dad's life. It felt cold and impersonal. Everyone here knew my dad. They knew that he came to Canada when he was 7. They knew that he and his brothers helped run the family restaurant before they started the Adega. They know he loved a good argument and had strong opinions. So why rehash? As I sat and tried to come up with a way to make that all personal and more, personal, a thought occurred to me. Dad was unconventional. He liked to try new things and he liked to do things differently. So I decided I'm going to scrap the eulogy, no list of his life events, just focus on some memories. Maybe I can share with you a bit of who he was rather than what he did. So here goes. One of my earliest memories of my dad was when I was, I think, about 3 years old. And he and I sat on the outside the front entrance of our Wise courthouse, eating a half a watermelon. Now, I don't mean we ate slices of watermelon that equaled a half watermelon. I mean, we ate a half a watermelon. Him and his 3-year-old daughter. And I can only think that we ate it outside so that Mom didn't have to clean up the mess that a 3-year-old makes eating watermelon. And because the hose was right there, so Dad could just hose me down if necessary. As I got older, I have memories of things like Dad taking me for a haircut, planting corn, picking peas and beans and carrots from our vegetable garden, and of course, the flying figs. Okay, so the flying figs. My mom and Dad thought it was hilarious to throw figs at me when I wasn't looking.
At us, Lisa.
Okay, at us, sorry David. And tell us that our fig tree was actually a variety of figs called a flying fig, and that this is what they do. They just popped right off the tree and hit you as you walk by. And to my everlasting embarrassment, I believed them. I think I was probably about 10 years later when I figured it out that they don't actually fly off the trees by themselves. Some of my favorite memories, though, as a child were when Dad would take me to work with him at the Adega. I loved when he opened because I got to have breakfast there, usually a soft-boiled egg and some toast. And then later, after the bread man had made his delivery and Dad was ready for his coffee break, we'd sometimes share, a glazed donut or a Long John, while Dad did the crossword puzzle and I read the comics. I think that my love of crossword puzzles comes from that and watching my dad and my uncles do the puzzles on their breaks. While Dad worked, either cooking or serving, I'd help peel potatoes, wash dishes, or run errands. Errands that seemed, more often than not, to take me down the creepy stairs into the basement that always smelled of grease and wet potatoes. Dad was always there for the big moments in my life, cheering me on, or offering an emotional toast. He was very good at those. He was at all of my graduations. He proudly walked me down the aisle on my wedding day, and he was the first family member to arrive at the hospital when my children were born. Well, not Thomas, but that's because no one was allowed to visit. Hashtag COVID baby. This spring and early summer, I had the joy of watching him share his love of gardening with my children while they planted the vegetable garden together, a project that was all Dad's idea. It brought me back to my childhood when David and I used to help our dad in our garden at Wise Court. I had no way of knowing then, as I watched them plant the lettuce, corn, and tomatoes, that this would be their last summer with their Vavoo. But I am so grateful that one of their last experiences with him was one that I so fondly remembered from my own childhood. Dad was taken from us too soon. Had I known, I would have made more memories. I would have spent more time with him. I would have listened to him more. But I know that he wouldn't want me to dwell on what could have been, but to cherish the time we did have together. Because he shared the same sentiments as poet Joyce Grenfell. If I should die before the rest of you, break not a flower, nor inscribe a stone, nor when I'm gone, speak in a Sunday voice, but be the usual selves that I have known. Weep if you must, parting is hell, but life goes on, so sing as well. So that is what I will do. I will sing. I will sing to my children about their vavoo. I will share my memories with them and honor my dad by living my life fully and by keeping his vegetable garden alive. Now, Dad's turn.
A dad's job is to be a provider and a teacher. He did both of those things genuinely every day that I knew him. My dad learned, my dad learned at a young age from a man who moved his entire family across the Atlantic Ocean that you did what it takes to make sure that your family's okay. That you do what it takes to make sure your kids have things a little bit better than you did. I saw this quality in my dad at a young age as well. And he provided for his kids through feast and famine while starting a new career with 4 young children at home. It's not something many people are willing to do. As a kid, I would go to my dad's soccer games after church on Sundays. What an honor it was to watch these Premier League athletes rip it up on the field. I thought the knee braces made them run faster. Naturally, he taught me how to play soccer. I took an interest in playing goaltender like he did when he was younger, and of course that meant spending more time with him in the backyard practicing. There was nothing he loved more than family get-togethers at the Adega, at Tita Nisha's house, at T. Francis's house, and the Tishadas. The list goes on. That's all we did was family get-togethers. We would spend all night at these events watching the old farts play Sweka, smashing their hands on the table and conversing at outrageous volumes. We're all a little bit deaf after these get-togethers. That was his family. That is what he wanted to teach us, to put family first. Even though he died far too young, he was able to watch his family grow to 4 households with 10 grandchildren. He lived simply, and he didn't have much. Yet those 4 children and 10 grandchildren were more than enough, more than what he needed to keep his chin up. I have what I have because of him, and I am who I am because of him. Unrelated to his death, he'd been having some health problems, and though nobody wants health problems, we ended up spending more time with him than ever. I'm extremely grateful, given the circumstances, that we all spend a little bit more time with him. I feel like I knew him more than I ever did growing up. Prior to that, I didn't spend as much time with him as I should have. Living so close, I had no reason not to. I had to work late, I had to fix the bathroom, I had to watch my kids. He never stopped teaching us. The old man left us with one more lesson. There's no such thing as spending too much time with family, and it's never too soon to love or to tell someone you love them. It doesn't have to be in words, it just has to be done.
It's hard to put an entire relationship down into words, especially if that relationship spanned your entire life and took on many different roles and dynamics. As a young kid, I was blessed to look up to my father like he was 5.5 feet tall. He was a Zorian after all. Some of the earlier memories of him, some of my earliest memories of him, was of him singing to Danny and I to put us to sleep, strumming his acoustic guitar to songs that he had in a 3-ring binder. Song Sung Blue and Sloop John B come to mind. I remember telling him that he should record an album, and he replied that no one would want to hear that. We were both being honest, I think. Danny mentioned watching him play soccer, but he also coached us, setting in me a love of sports and competition I still carry. When I was into basketball as a teenager, he showed me his willingness to invest his time by building a basketball court in our backyard. When I was into music, he insisted to buy them my first drum kit, and then endured as our heavy metal band set up shop in his garage. We were bad, really bad. He was such a gentle soul. He hardly speaking an ill word about anyone, Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny notwithstanding. I mean, think about that. The 2 people he disliked the most were fictional. I'm not sure if he knew this, but he was unequivocally not the disciplinarian of our house. The 2 or 3 times I disobeyed as a child, I almost wished he was the one to punish me. And when he did, on at least one occasion, I'm pretty sure I fake cried so that my mom wouldn't come and finish the job.
Yeah.
All that time and into adulthood, he laid the foundation of hard work and ethics. It's hard to overstate the effect of going to work with your dad, the effect that has on you when he's the boss. When I worked for him in the summers, I couldn't wait until the Tuesday North van run, because it meant I got to spend 2 hours in the truck with him, just talking, just the 2 of us. I, like many teenagers, went through a phase when I didn't want to hear any of his advice because I knew better. Moving away from home and realizing how very wrong I was began the last 15 years of our relationship, consisting of hours of phone conversations. Some of that was me begging for the advice I wish I hadn't taken for granted. A lot of it was of him choking up while he informed me of the death of his second cousin's sister's hairdresser's cat's patronage. No word of a lie, he called me when David's dog died. He called me in tears to offer condolences when my idiot dog got hit by a car and died. He was chasing rabbits. That's just who he was a softie. But not without stubbornness and determination. Danny and I recently had a chuckle over a text message wherein he repeatedly misspelled the word Japanese. Anyone with a smartphone would appreciate the sheer determination and will required to erroneously circumvent Apple's autocorrect. It's even more impressive when about a week later I spent an hour on FaceTime with his ear, because despite my efforts to correct him, he thought he was on an audio phone call. I refused to dishonor his memory by claiming he was perfect, but he was gentle, kind, generous, hardworking, and above all, he was my dad, and I loved him very much. Thank you.
I can't really add too much to what my siblings have said, but no matter how hard I tried not to, I ended up following in my father's footsteps quite well. I don't think I could have had a better teacher. I have clients that I've had since my dad owned the company. I still have them now because he taught me so well to take care of not only the estate, but the person. He was very, as Mark said, very generous. We were never in need for anything because we could just go to my dad and selfishly ask for something, and he would lecture us on it, but he would end up giving it to us because we never asked for too much. That's the way we were raised. He is the reason I am the person I am now. And he's just loved by everyone. We're now going to be putting on a 12-minute slideshow. It doesn't matter.
Thanks to Lisa and Steve for making that slideshow. As Lisa pointed out, my dad's actually here with us tonight inside that biodegradable turtle. Auntie Sheena's going to help the grandchildren. They're going to come up and they're going to have their hands painted and place a handprint on the shell of the turtle. Right, guy? You ready? Your time's coming, man.
Wash their hands after there's a sink just behind there.
We're going to open the floor up. Anyone wants to walk around, mingle, take a look at the paintings, everything like that. Food and drink will be being served momentarily, but if anyone has any memory or anything they want to say, by all means come up and tell a funny story. I know there's a lot. Okay. Let's just
slide track. Yeah, there you go. You're good. I just want to edit it. Okay, play it. Okay, good to see you, by the way. I gotta say hi. It's great. The Japanese comment was when he was telling Danny about your mom passed away. And just in the text I was going to show you, he misspelled Japanese with an O like several times. But you read it. I'm just gonna play it if you don't mind in the background. No music, no sound. That's fine. Okay.
So I've known Al since I was, 6 years old, 5 years old? So I've been around the family for a long time. I remember going to an elementary school birthday party for him. And I think we almost had some beer, but they took it away real quick.
Mother-in-law served it to you.
Yeah. I always loved her, you know. Very hospitable. We had a lot of time together through elementary school, doing silly things there. High school, doing even more silly things there. Living through Love Won and Love Lost. University, where we did more things about Love Won and Love Lost. Went through many iterations of getting into trouble and getting out of trouble. One of the things that I remember about him, he was a man of two cultures, his Portuguese culture and his Canadian culture, and they were often at odds with each other. So he tried to fit into both, and I'm not sure if he did either, but he tried, and that was one of the things that he constantly did. He was a very, I find, philosophical individual, and he did like to have an argument. There are more arguments than I can remember. But he challenged you. He challenged you to think. He challenged you to question whether or not what you believed was really worth believing. But he was hard in that aspect. One of the things that he was also a true friend throughout all the years and all the births and more births and weddings, but he was always a true friend and always made me feel welcome in his home. He always made me feel a part of his family. He was very much a brother to me. One of the things, on the other side though, he was hard. Sort of like that commercial. You make it hard to be a friend of yours. But he was always a friend. I think one of the best things that I see here is his legacy, his family, his kids, his grandchildren, and they are his legacy. And as I see them grow and I see the grandchildren grow, I think he's done well and will always be remembered. He will always be my friend.
Make sure he doesn't go and say a few words.
Just one second.
They always do that.
As everybody knows, for years and years, when we all got together, the part of the time when everybody's eyes would look down and they would want to be noticed was when Alfonso took the mic and everybody would be like, oh, here we go again. But one thing Alfonso did, and I do too, that was very great is Alfonso always spoke from his heart. And so, like, if we would have a birthday for my dad or for teenage or for any of our weddings, birthdays. And if it wasn't for Tia phones, the poor person would just get gifts and be like, oh, okay, whatever, nobody, thanks for coming. And Tia phones made sure you knew that you were special and that was your day. And he cried just like this. And people would be like, okay, is it over? But the thing that was so good about that was that he took time to recognize anybody that was close to his heart. And today, I know we'd be very pleased that we're taking time to remember him. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Don McPherson, and on behalf of my wife, who couldn't be here today because of knee surgery, we wanted to really thank the family for inviting us to be here. No, I don't think so. Do I need a mic? No. Yeah. But I really wanted to say, Al and I go back, probably not as long as Kirby and Al, and the media family, but we go back over 50 some odd years. And there's probably a few things that you don't know about Al, but it hits the heart. We all knew that he was a soccer player. And Mark, you mentioned it today, that he took you out and taught you a little bit about basketball. Well, I can tell you, Al never knew anything about basketball until he came to high school. And him and I teamed up, and for a small school of maybe 100 people and a senior basketball school that competed against some of the big schools, Al and I played guard. I couldn't shoot the basketball. Al could really defend it, but he defended it like he played soccer. He'd be taking people out left and right and say, Don, what am I doing wrong here? How come I'm sitting on the sidelines all the time? Because he'd get 5 fouls and then the referee would throw him out. But Al and I grew close. As we grew through high school, some of us would know the Lantern Cafe. And the Lantern Cafe was always the NHL hockey rink for a lot of us. And Dennis would know this because we would go down and we'd be closing up the restaurant when we'd sneak down on the bus. And we'd play hockey amongst the tables and the benches, and we'd have a great game of hockey. Even though the restaurant was closed, the doors would be still open, and people would be going, what the hell's going on in the Lantern restaurant? But I can remember going down there and having a great time. Al also was somebody famous for me and maybe for Kirby, because you see, Al was a lot older than us. A lot older. But he was about a year older. And I don't know how he ever did this, but he got his driver's license. And he always had the car at school, and we thought, geez, this is really great. Grade 10 or 11, he had the dart. Remember the famous dart? Yes. And we couldn't figure out why his older brothers never had the car. But Al was our best friend because we were so cool just driving around in those cars. But he was also very, very smart. In high school, in our grade 12 year, I thought, this is pretty good. I'll run for school president. I'll be the school president and have lots to say. And Al said, you know what, Don? He says, I'll be your campaign manager, and I'll help you out get elected. This whole school of 120 kids. And we had the best campaign going. Except one afternoon, when my name was being splashed all around the school, school principal, and now the sister came up and said, "You're not running for school president." She said, "You will never make it through school if you become the school president." So she said, and pointed to Al, "But Al, you can run for school president." So we reversed. I became the campaign manager for Alfonso Resendes, and he went on to be the school president. But we had to have a campaign. And the campaign was, what are we going to encourage the kids to vote for you? He says, Don, he says, I know. Does anybody remember what the dances were in school when they were going to school? We used to have 2 dances. He said, Don, we're going to have 3 dances this year in grade 12. And so, of course, that always resonated with all the kids, and he got to be president in a landslide victory that's probably going to be the same as maybe on November the 3rd down south, right? But Al was also very talented. And for me, I wasn't an outdoors kid. I could never do anything, like fishing and things like that. Like, I remember Al telling us, he took us up to Squamish one time. He says, Don, I'm going to show you how to fish. I said, show me, okay, so where's the fishing rod, where's the tackle, and things like that. He says, oh no, he says, well, I'll show you like we do it at home. He took out the fishing line, rolled it up with the rock, and used to go like this and throw it out. I mean, one time we came back with so many fish, we could have fed a whole village. Actually, we got nothing. But he was a true friend. And up until he went and had his physical problems, we'd always get together. We'd get together with Kirby because he was such a great friend. Kirby kept us all together. And we had dinners and we rolled for a few drinks, and that all stopped. Now, we're going to miss you. You couldn't have been a better friend to all of us. And we hope you're in a better place. Thank you.
Do you want to say something? This is Hallie and Teresa, and they have a few words that they'd like to say about their movie. There's not a whole lot of it.
Was a smart, funny, and caring man. My favorite memory of him was when we went fishing. We miss you. We love you.
Apparently Duncan wants to say something too. What do you want to say? Do you love Lulu? You say I miss you? Go ahead, say I got an email from my aunt in Ontario. So this is from Teresa Spence Stewart. A memory I have of Al is of a couple of his paintings that he did after a visit to the Spence cottage in Ontario many years ago. The first was of the cottage itself. Our cottage has a lot of sentimental value for us, as it was in our family for 82 years. I think Al really knew how much it meant to our family when he gave us this special gift. The second painting was of Uncle Andy sitting on the end of the dock fishing at his cottage, which was down the road from the Spence cottage. The painting of Uncle Andy is right there in the corner. Sorry. Uncle Andy was a dear, longtime friend of our grandparents who was adopted as family many, many years ago. Al really captured the true essence of Uncle Andy and what he liked doing best when at his cottage. As a result of his painting, I was able to see Uncle Andy every time I visited the cottage. Al, thank you for these memories. Okay, so that ends our celebration of, well, the service part of it. Now we get to really celebrate the way my dad would have liked to. There's food outside, so when we open these doors, it's, due to COVID, it's cafeteria style, so you go and say what you want and the server will plate it for you. There's coffee, tea, punch, and then wine and a selection of beers as well. Please feel free to mingle, COVID friendly, of course. Most of us are family, I know, but, and hang out as long as you want. We'd love to celebrate Dad with you. Thank you all for coming today.
Just gonna shut this all down. Yeah, let me take it off.
He just reminds us to be orderly when we go up. Okay, so I'm running. When you're dancing, that's awesome. Just don't go behind the screen, okay? And don't go over.